Hello, everybody. Welcome to Instrumental Breakthroughs. I'm your host, Daniel Shankin. I'm also the program director of Tam Integration. We offer psychedelic integration, preparation, and coaching to spiritual seekers all across the world, helping them to remember that they are, in fact, divine beings of love and light. If you like the podcast and want to support it, you can do that at tamintegration.com/donate or at our Patreon page, patreon.tamintegration. And you're also welcome to contact us to just learn more about our services. Who else do I want to thank? Or introduce. Well, we do definitely want to thank Deadhead Land, right? Deadhead Land is our co-producer and co-host, and you're probably watching this on Deadhead Land. They are a really amazing virtual space for musicians. There's music all day, every day, as you probably know. They also have a Patreon page, of course. What else can I think of to say? Oh, I do some volunteer work. Dango, you might think this is interesting. I do some volunteer work at the Owsley Stanley Foundation. And the Owsley Stanley Foundation takes Bear's tapes. So Owsley was a sound engineer, if you didn't know. He was also one of the most prolific and amazing LSD cooks of the 1960s and Summer of Love. And he kind of revolutionized how sound was produced. He built the wall of sound. He did a lot for engineering, and he just recorded everything. And they're a nonprofit, and what they're doing is they're trying to save these tapes because they're sort of disintegrating before our eyes. And they just released a new album of a Commander Cody show, which is kind of fun and wild. And so maybe check out what the Owsley Stanley Foundation is doing. That's not a paid ad. They're a nonprofit. I'm just mentioning them because I love what they do.
So are they taking analog recordings, tape recordings, remixing and mastering them, and then making them on digital platforms?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. So he had all of these reel-to-reels, and one of the things they do is they consider them sonic journals. So there are some of these recordings where he flips the tape in the middle, and so you lose a couple of seconds, and they just keep that. You hear the zip. There's some tapes where you can hear him fumbling and cursing, and they keep that because that's the journal of the moment.
Yeah,
it's a really neat project. They've got a really strong commitment to quality. Bear had a very strong commitment to quality and authenticity in both of his recording and his cooking.
Wow.
Yeah. Which brings us to our guest. This gentleman has been traveling the world for the past 17 years, bringing joy and music to millions. He's probably best known as the founder of Elephant Revival. He's a songwriter, producer, and bass player. Please just open your hearts and welcome Dango Rose. Dango.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with everyone.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So the theme of the show is the psychedelic origin stories of your favorite rock and roll superheroes. So that's you. You're the rock and roll superhero of the day. And we'd love to hear a little bit about, you can start wherever you like, but perhaps just kind of discussing how psychedelics have influenced your music and your creativity.
Yeah, I think psychedelics actually coincided with the onset of my music. I don't think one actually existed without the other. I grew up outside of Chicago, and we'd head into the small forest preserve areas that they had there, and probably got my start, with LSD and mushrooms or whatever else it was during those times, really just in the forest. And there was music in everything. And I think that's what really was the prime realization. So I was young. I was probably 13 or so, and I started to hear the music and everything. And I started hearing the music in the small creek beds, in the trains, We'd walk down the train tracks. I'd be skipping stones off the tracks into the water, the trees, the birds, and it all sort of started to begin to sound like a cacophonous symphony. And then from there, just like a lot of origin stories, we pretty much end up in my friend's basement or my garage.
Mm-hmm.
And
About how old are you at this point?
13, 14.
Okay.
Sometime around then. Yeah. And then we'd just play. Oh, and we learned music that way by just playing and experimenting. Usually once a week on whatever the psychedelic of our choice was at the time. And we delve into like these 3-4 hour sessions of actually just learning our instruments and learning to play together. So that was like my origin story of how psychedelia and music came together at the same time.
Right on. And then I really like that kind of visual. Well, it's an audio visual of kind of the music on the train tracks. Mm-hmm. Just sort of recognizing that, oh my God, that there's something more here and that this is alive. And I'm sort of curious, what is it like to try to take sort of the music of the universe and channel it through a bass?
Yeah, so at the beginning, so I am a multi-instrumentalist, mm-hmm. But in the group settings, bass always made sense to me because it was a way to like just coalesce and cohesify the group experience, and then mm-hmm. Honoring the tribe or the group was always meaningful to me. So how best to do that? So, well, the bass is sort of like a primordial sound, or the frequency of it is so low mm-hmm. that it resonates and brings together. So actually focusing on like the tone and the preciseness of the tone and the length of the notes and the rhythm, almost became like a precise science, like very, very nuanced rhythm could be. And I think I could hear that more because of the experiences with psychedelics or mind-altering substances, like how to actually fit into a whole sort of octave ratio of frequencies, mm-hmm. Being the base of that. You might have to ask me the question again, actually.
I think we were talking about how do we channel. Well, I really like that. So you're bringing insight into nuance of bass that I didn't consider.
Very, very, very nuanced. Like the preciseness of the length of note and tone to like the millisecond. That's how I began hearing bass, especially because you end up playing it a lot of times the same bass line over and over again. So how precise can it be? And it's not necessarily about perfection, but like in listening mm-hmm. to everyone, like you're constantly, it's just so nuanced, the actual preciseness of bass playing in a group context where you're actually trying to lift up the group,
right,
or to hold that ground.
So that's almost a physics reference. We're lifting up the group by holding it down.
Yeah, by holding the ground. Yeah.
And so when you're talking about playing this bass line, the bass line over and over and over again, I'm almost getting this vision of creating a trance for yourself. Like it's a rhythm instrument in a lot of ways. And so you're kind of creating a trance state, perhaps.
Absolutely. And I think being on the road for 17 years, up until May of 2018, I didn't realize how I was actually doing that necessarily every night, mm-hmm. Entering into that trance state. And then that's like as a way of honest, meditation, you can relate it to in a group way. But how meaningful that was actually to life, like the groundedness of it all. Yeah.
Right. And so do you have other, so my curiosity is, how does the meditation of bass playing overlap with either the meditation practice that maybe you do or do not have, I don't know, and how does it overlap with, your psychedelic meditation practice?
Yeah, they all come together sort of in the same way. Recently, I've been going to Light Club that my friend Chuck Hyde runs, lightclub.earth. And it's a white spectrum, full spectrum sort of light on a vibrating sound healing board. So it's creating pretty much just sacred geometry that is created from your own subconscious in different colors, even though the light is white. So really just following the trails of these lights in conscious meditation without any psychoactive drugs.
Wait. Will you just take a step back, because you use this Light Club like I should know what it is?
Oh yeah, lightclub.earth. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, my friend Chuck Hyde. Yeah, that's right. Not all of you are privy to.
We don't know Chuck, man.
Yeah, Chuck's awesome. He's got this amazing thing called Light Club. But it is to create, it's like practice. So, but that practice of like following the geometry or following the shapes and following the light, if you will, I would end up doing that while playing bass. So when I would close my eyes, I guess I became known, for better or worse, for rolling my eyes in the back of my head while I played.
Okay.
So I would enter a trance state, like it would be almost like channeling. So somehow I'd be channeling. I mean, the bass isn't like, it's not complex in its perception, But then what I was actually doing when I was playing is I'd be channeling bass, or like the foundation or the circumference of the groove, I guess you could say. And that preciseness of it, because of like this intense one-pointed focus, which is one of my meditation practices, is to have one point of focus and to come back to it, to come back to that one point of focus. So then anytime that my mind would wander while playing bass, it would be like back to the one point of focus, back to the one point of focus, which is, probably similar for a lot of musicians. But then in club settings or in theater settings or in big, like Red Rock settings, like you're always still coming back to the same thing. You're coming back to the sound. So it reminds me, maybe reading Phil Lesch's, Searching for the Sound, kind of when I was like 16, maybe it had an impact on me of like what that meant as a bass player. I realize I'm going on tangents and might not be answering your questions. Maybe,
dude, I don't care if you answer my questions.
Maybe
I mean, any sort of lame question that I come up with is really just me throwing a piece of wood on the fire of your tangents.
Okay, cool. That's good.
And I just want you to tell me how that book influenced.
It's like I barely remember the book at this point. That's kind of like. But I was in California. I think something happened. I was hitchhiking. It was actually a Phil Lesh and Friends show. Maybe I was 18. I think I was 18 when I was out there. But I was hitchhiking. I hitchhiked out of San Francisco to get to the show.
Were these the Warfield shows in the 90s?
Great question. Would not be able to remember.
Okay.
But I remember not actually being able to make it into the show for whatever reason. But I think I got the book outside the show. But the weirdest thing happened that night.
The parking lot booksellers, the underground parking lot booksellers.
Underground parking lot booksellers. I got a book and a ganja goo ball, and everything was set to go.
Right.
And at this point, I was young. I didn't have direction necessarily. I didn't know where I was going. Didn't know where I was staying. And because I didn't know where I was staying, I ended up getting dropped off in Golden Gate Park. So I pretty much had a backpack, this new book, Searching for the Sound. I go to sleep in Golden Gate Park at like 4:30 in the morning.
Sure.
And then I wake up and I'm surrounded by literally naked Chinese women doing Tai Chi when I woke up that morning.
Awesome.
It was really beautiful. Very beautiful moment. Anyways, I had a lot of experiences like that. It's like I never got into the show, but I got the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like turned on to like the ancient art of Tai Chi
Right.
because I slept in the park, you know?
Yeah, I once got actually kicked out of a show. I think it was Rat Dog at like the Beacon Theater. And a whole bunch of us had stickers of like this concert production company we were trying to start back then. And, you know, we basically just had stickers was our company. And we were just putting them all over the Beacon, and they didn't like that. And I think that they saw me once and they were like, stop doing that. And so I stopped. But all of like, there were like 6 other guys putting stickers everywhere. And then they grabbed me and they were like, you're still doing it. It was not me, I swear. And they threw me out, but I ended up in, like, I'm not a musician, but I had a harmonica in my pocket for whatever reason. So I'm walking around in front of the Beacon playing harmonica on some like yellow gel tabs. And these musicians were like, we're about to go to the recording studio. We need a harmonica player. So I'm like, I have no idea who those guys were. But it was like the only time I ever got to be like, you know, it's probably the only album I'm on. I have no idea what album it is, but like, you know, I played harmonica on that guy's album.
Right, right.
Those are the weird kind of things that happen sometimes when you don't get in the show.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, we could actually just go into memories of not getting into the show and what happened.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. What happened?
But keep going with it. Give me another one.
Well, oh yeah, that's a great question. You know, I remember this one. I was hitchhiking out of Vegas. I think it was the Fish shows in like 99 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this point, I'm like 17 or something, or 18, whatever. I didn't have any professional bands at this point. I was following shows and doing. Anyway, all I have to my name is a Neil Young cassette tape, Harvest, and a half vial of liquid. And I'm not having too much luck getting picked up. But I was in a very clear and positive state of mind. I think I have a phone call coming in. Hold on one second. I'm turning that off. And so I'm hitchhiking out of Vegas. And I get picked up in a stolen station wagon. I knew it was stolen after they told me. I didn't know at the time, but it had a bull skull on the front of it. 3 21-year-old British ladies who were coming from Canada. And they were going to Mexico, and they picked me up out of Vegas. I drove them to Arizona. We stopped at the Grand Canyon. My gas money was the liquid. We walk into the Grand Canyon, walk back. This one woman tells me that her dream is to end up on the beach in Belize, weaving hammocks and, you know, falling in love. And anyway, I end up driving them to the border of Arizona and Mexico. And that's where I get out. It was like I became their driver pretty much. And I never made it to the show, essentially is what I'm talking about.
Right.
I got out of the van, got out of the station wagon, and they went on. I ended up getting a letter a couple of years later that this woman did make it to Belize, and she was weaving hammocks and had found her love. And I had just had a crazy experience, and then I got dropped off, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to catch the next show. So I'm hitchhiking again, and I ended up trading what I had left for my first mandolin when I got to San Diego or something. But that was a cool experience. That was my first like real hitchhiking experience that I had, where I was just allowing, you know. Yeah, that was not going to the show. I didn't end up at either of the shows I was going to.
You didn't end up at either. So the two things that stick out for me there is how powerful it is that this woman had a dream and then made it happen. Like so often there are people and they tell you their stories about what they're going to do and they don't do them. Like it's actually that was a rare woman that she actually like did the thing that she told you she was going to do.
Yeah, while we were tripping somewhere in Arizona, looking at the stars on the roof of that station wagon. I really wonder if it was stolen.
I mean, your LSD might have coalesced the vision that actually made it possible for her to do that.
It probably had something to do with it. I mean,
well, you got a letter. It was important enough to her that you got a letter.
Yes. Yeah. And it was important enough to me that I like go back to experiences like that when I forget about synchronicity or I forget about the magic of the universe, you know. It was, yeah, very alchemist type experience. Yeah, and it all led me to the mandolin, which is...
Well, that's what I wanted to hear about next, is this mandolin. Do you still have it? What did you play on it? What did it mean to you?
It meant a lot to me. It became my traveling instrument. It sort of became my second voice, if you will, in a lot of ways. That mandolin, I have no idea what ended up happening to it, but it, you know, got me into the instrument. And what a cool way to find your next instrument, you know?
Right.
Yeah, nothing ever really happened standard for me, I guess you could say.
Your story about the stolen station wagon reminded me of a time that I picked up a hitchhiker who I believe was a dangerous criminal. I was driving down the road. I was just clearing my head driving. I lived in Oregon at the time. I think I was probably going to go to the coast or something, or maybe I was going to drive to Portland from Eugene and cut over to the coast and come down. I forget what my route was, but I was listening to the Grateful Dead, and there was this hitchhiker on the side of the road, and it was playing Shakedown Street. And it said, like, don't tell me this town ain't got no heart. So you kind of have to pick up a hitchhiker if that's what's playing.
Right.
And so I picked this guy up, and he's sketchy and nervous. He doesn't seem violent or dangerous, but he's like kind of like not doing, like he's trying to ground.
Right.
And we go like about a mile or two up the road, and there's like half a dozen cop cars and like cops like rustling through the bushes, like looking for stuff, looking for something. And it's pretty clear to me, it's pretty clear to both of us, they're looking for him.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like there's a bunch of cops like running around like in the area next to the highway.
Wow, you had picked him up.
And I picked him up, and like my blood goes kind of cold. And I think he gets a little stiff because I think he knows that I know. And I go, are they looking for you? And he's and there's and keep in mind in the background there's still like this really dope, like Jerry's playing. There's a great jam going on. And are they looking for you? And he's like, no, man, no, they're not looking for me. And what am I going to say? I just say, well, they won't find you in here. And I just floor it. We're good. The energy melts. And it was like, oh, whatever, man.
That's great.
Yeah. And we hung out by the coast for a while. I don't know what happened to him.
Which coast town did you go to? Do you remember?
No. No idea.
What a story. Oh my
Hopefully he was the guy that this woman met in Belize and fell in love with.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Or maybe not.
More likely not. But,
more likely not.
But we hope he found something.
The Oregon coast.
It's really nice and seemingly populated by spacecraft.
Oh. So tell me more.
I wrote tell you more. I mean, what can I tell you? That that mushrooms seem to be good for the Oregon coast.
Right.
And sitting on the Oregon coast and like, somebody's old sort of little shanty house that's a little bit moldy, on a bunch of mushrooms, and you go out back by the water, and it's not like there's not spacecraft up there.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, mushroom picking on the coastal range.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So do aliens ever come to your shows?
I believe that aliens are pretty much and with us in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, a lot of people I know, you know, identify more as if they're from another planet.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very much of this earth
Mm.
um, in some way. But then when I say that, I actually see a whole bunch of different stars. It's like, how long have we actually been here? You know, it's like 2,000 years ago actually doesn't seem that long ago sometimes.
Right.
Or like 7,000 years ago. Like somehow it's able to be recognized or to be seen in these lifetimes. One respect are kind of just like a blink of an eye. It's kind of why I you know, you just kind of have to breathe through these current times.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not that long.
There was this one Zen master I was reading at some point, and his phrase was, "Don't mind the times, mind the eternities."
Mm. Yeah, because I mean, we could either. Is it throwing stones? What's the lyrics to Throwing Stones? Do you remember? Ashes, ashes, all fall down, but the verses. There must be a reason why it came to my head. I think they must have the word eternity in there. But yeah, I mean, we could either be trapped by it or, you know, live infinitely within it with the pain and the joy and the joy and the pain.
Right.
Okay. Kind of have to have some elasticity, not harden ourselves too much.
So do you find the instinct to harden happening?
Yeah, I think more so in the past couple years, transitioning to a different kind of life.
Mm-hmm.
Since Elephant Revival disbanded in May of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, I think just trying to let go and not hold on to things.
Right.
You know, bands become like families. You have all these dynamics, and it's very easy to hold on to the past, or to. I'm sure that is for all of us, but can't really find freedom there.
Mm-hmm.
Or
so, what helped you like kind of move through that?
I think I'm still moving through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where do you get stuck?
Well, it's kind of just one of those classic stories where everything is going so well on the outside, but then if you see the inside, you realize that, you know, it's been fissured or fractured for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just keep going. And I think that's the thing with the industry that maybe will shift a little bit with these changing times.
Mm-hmm.
Is that push to keep going and going and going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just drive that bus. It doesn't matter who's at the wheel, right? So, like, you know, if it's Neil Cassidy or whoever else, sometimes the bus drivers are going to be really windy around the corners, you know? But you just keep going. So you never actually have time in most bands, from my experience, to stop long enough to actually process your life experience.
Right.
And then the way that is done is usually it's numbed out a little bit.
Right.
You know? And that's the other side of thing. It could be numbed out through drugs, alcohol, psychedelia. When psychedelics actually become a numbing agent,
right,
to your life, you know, that's when the coin flips. And that's why I really respect what you guys are doing with the guided experiences and
mm-hmm.
sort of the coaching around it. I think it's really cool, and I think it's really important for this day and age. But going back to that, just the industry pressure to keep going and going. It's like, you know, you got to hit these markets, do these tours, get back to this place 3 times a year. You develop this strategy, you know, go,
mm-hmm.
go. While the strategy is developing, you're developing a whole team of a support network. that becomes your management. It becomes the record label. It becomes the interns that the management has, publicists, everybody else is making the industry go around. So then you're working with a machine. You actually have this entity behind you. You have a business behind you that requires you to keep going. And then you're working with more people's livelihoods. And then you have a crew. And then it's just like you keep going and you keep going, and like the curves get tighter, but you got to get to the next show.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be like a pressure cooker, and then most band members don't really have time to foster a home life.
Right.
It's hard to maintain relationships. It's hard to maintain family. It's hard to be a present father or a present mother at times. So it's a really interesting industry and model, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here. Now that the
how would you envision a healthy industry? What does a healthy industry look like that like honors like a musician's need for humanity and the reflection part of the action reflection cycle? Because it seems to me like, I'm not maybe the most creative guy, but it seems to me that it's in those reflection parts where the creativity comes through. But
yeah, it could be. Yeah, usually you need time for things to settle or to get out of like modalities and patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why hitting the road or just taking a road trip is so good. Doing something different.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking the patterns. It's like the patterns help create the craft, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like showing up every day to your instruments, or showing up to the pen and paper, showing up to your recording software, whatever it is, and like doing the work, putting in the time. Stephen Pressfield, author of The War of Art, talks so much about showing up every day to do the work.
Right.
And that work is like a battle within ourselves against the resistance that keeps us from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I just went off on another tangent. So that's so important too. But then breaking the patterns is also so important, like getting out of your daily routines, taking that trip, going somewhere unknown, meeting new people. And especially as we get older, as I get older, it's easier to fall back into routines than it is to create new experiences where sort of that magic still permeates through. I think in the music industry, going back to that, I do think it needs to slow down when it comes back together. So many venues are closing. The small venues are going to have a harder time.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to communities really pulling together to support their musicians and artists more,
Right.
and having a little bit more support systems and structures set up. Places like Canada have a little bit more support for their artists. Also places in Europe. America's tough in that way, to be honest. It's just like, it's really a top 5% kind of thing here.
Yeah.
That can make a living off of being musicians and artists. It's not like that in other countries. I'm hopeful that like the touring acts and the festivals continue, but then like there's also the oversaturation. So maybe like just thinning it out a little bit is okay, of, like the countless festivals we have now.
Right.
How much energy that burns, fossil fuels, even though we're still, going renewable and doing as much we can with solar and everything, obviously all the different energies at these festivals, they're still creating a lot of waste. So then we get into climate change. So like, how can we be part of the solution, right? With this industry? These are really important questions right now. And I'm not the one to figure it out. But
what I'm hearing is that there's a micro and a macro, and they're very related. So it's like your burnout is not dissimilar from the ecological burnout, that the entire system is just sort of designed to extract. And on one hand, the people who are receiving like this kind of joy and ecstasy and connection and all of these sort of positive emotions, but at what cost?
At what cost? And like the whole reason behind it too is to help inspire people to live more in their purpose and truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's why I started. It's like
Okay.
somehow the music helps do that. Like
Yeah.
if it could inspire a 17-year-old to realize their path in life, or at least what they think it is for the next like 5 years, like that's really cool. Or bring people together in love. So many
Mm-hmm.
people met and fell in love at our shows and ended up getting married, and stuff like that. Like the music is so powerful. It's healing. It's medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's much in the same way that psychedelics, or the integration of it too. Like it's medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Music is medicine. So how do we get back to that without like getting away from like the live concert experience that's fun and a good place to hang out and have a few beers or whatever. The clubs need to make money, but like how do we really get back to the source of it all, which is the music is medicine, it's celebration,
Right.
and that's
Well,
the way
and then
always...
it's like, how do we take care of our medicine people, our medicine men and women?
Yeah. How do we take care of the elders?
Mm-hmm.
I think all of us are going to be going back to the earth more and more. And at the same time, technology is going to advance more and more. And so it's all happening simultaneously. How's that going to work?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about it. You're saying that people met and fell in love at your concerts. I met my wife at a festival called Prana Fest in Ashland, Oregon, at Hot Springs. It was, kirtan and yoga music and, teepees with chakras painted on them and all that kind of good Oregon stuff. And the sweet moment that we had together, one of these first sweet moments, was not at the main stage. It was at the fire pit at night, where it's just like folks like singing heart songs and rainbow songs around the fire. And, it's kind of the fact that we needed to go all that way to a big production to hang out at the fire pit. Mm-hmm. And, what would it be like if we relied on the people, instead of having such stardom, such stars in our eyes, is to just sort of lift up the people in our community who were good around the local fire pit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the way it's been done for generations upon generations, right?
Yeah.
Before there was the infrastructure for all this, it was communities getting together around the fire and playing music and singing songs and drinking wine.
Yeah. And to, and just historically, and this is not to say anything negative, I know that we're sort of, bemoaning the woes and the direction things have gone in, but I'm just thinking about the Wall of Sound, like Owsley Stanley's Wall of Sound.
Right.
Because before he came around, you could either play clearly or you could play loud, but you couldn't play both. And so it limited the amount of people that were able to come to the show. And then developing that technology.
It's pretty epic. And nothing can be taken away from that live music experience with that sound that fills the amphitheater. One of my last amphitheater shows that I actually went to was Paul Simon's farewell tour.
I'm not familiar.
Paul Simon, the great American songwriter, did his farewell tour a couple of years ago. But I just remember that. Yeah, I mean, obviously we all know it, and then I went to one of the Dead and Company shows here in Boulder that got rained out. This is just my last couple of years of experience because I was touring for so long. I wasn't going to shows. I was just at the festivals and seeing everybody there, but just being part of the crowd again. And and just remembering that feeling, there's that, it's indescribable when that amount of people get together and the energy. That's kind of what I think I'm missing right now during this time. Like, we don't want to forget, we don't want to forget that vibe, that energy, that magic that happens when people are coming together for a unified vision, cause, and reason. And that is what the live music experience represents. And there's something absolutely amazing, the wall of sound, but just being able to do it on that scale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere.
Right. I went to my first live concert in several months last weekend.
Oh, cool.
I lived close by to Terrapin.
Nice.
And probably a lot of people who are watching, Brian Deadheadland streams a lot of the live Terrapin shows. And it's a really nice community. It's a kind of a small town venue in a lot of ways. You get to know people, and, you can chat with the musicians and things like that. It's nice. But they had like dinner and a show where you were taped in, you had your box. And you weren't allowed out of your box, and you had to dance in your box, and you had to keep your mask on. And, the waiters you'd fill out your order like on a sheet and like put it on the table, and then the waiter would come and take the sheet. And, it was very, they were taking it seriously, and that was nice that they, are towing the line of health, right? It's like they're taking that seriously. But it was also kind of nice to, be back, with your friends, and they're at the table over there, and you can't hug them, but you can wave and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting to see the resilience of people and how people, find a way in difficult times to, make stuff happen.
Yeah, people are making it happen. And our friends in Yonder Mountain String Band just did a drive-in concert up in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It was pretty awesome, everything I heard. And yeah, the drive-in experience, that's kind of cool.
Right.
And then our buddies up at the Caribou Room up here in Nederland, Colorado, they're doing the same thing. They have a huge parking lot, so they just moved it all outside.
Right.
Yeah, people are finding a way. People are making it happen. Hopefully it continues. I just can't wait for it just to feel it again. Just to feel, how did it feel at the Terrapin show?
It was nice. I actually, I like having a little bit of space to dance.
Right.
I'm a big guy. I use my body. I flail it around. It's like a lot of times at a crowded show, I often feel, I have to and that's sometimes nice too, to kind of get in the vibe where like everybody's sort of like moving like a flock of birds.
Right.
But it's also kind of really nice for me to not have to worry about, hitting a small girl with my arm as I flailed it around. And so that was kind of nice. And there were enough, friends around that was super positive. And, the music was nice, and it was kind of an early show, which is good because, we took the baby, and he doesn't want to be out late anyway. I had a really nice time.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Stu Allen. Do you know Stu?
I do know of Stu. I don't know him personally.
Yeah, Stu and Graham Lesh. And, it's only two of them up there, and they sang through masks.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they sang through masks. That's wild. Apparently their CO2 didn't build up too much, that they passed out or got wounded.
Okay.
They seem to, they've got strong lungs.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's great. So this week I would have been doing shows this week.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, with my buddy Sage Cook from Elephant Revival, Bridget Law, Sam Birchfield out of Atlanta. And I was super excited about getting this new group together, just to do the summer run of shows and to get in the recording studio.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just feeling all that, it's wild to have an entire year of work just disappear like so many of us have. It's totally wild.
Yeah.
I forget about it. I forget that it happened,
Right.
as I try to navigate my days. It's like, oh,
So are
right.
you spending more time in the studio? Are you doing lessons?
Yeah, I have a home recording setup. And so I've been just doing tons of recording, actually, which has been awesome. I've been collaborating with people around the world on some of those online video platforms. And then actually been releasing them, these videos in different countries. I started experimenting with that. So my friend plays a terapan. It kind of sounds like an Indonesian gamelan.
Okay.
And so after we finished doing this virtual collaboration, it was actually an album I produced last year. His group is called Teragape. But I found the terapan music to be so soothing and beautiful, kind of like this natural yoga music. We put a string section to it. And so anyways, I released it in Indonesia, and it became like this viral video in Indonesia, which is just awesome.
Oh, interesting.
Like,
Will you send it to me so I can link it in our show notes and stuff?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. So I've been doing weird stuff like that.
You're big in Indonesia now.
Yeah. I'm really lighting it up.
Nice.
But yeah, I have some music to release. I'm just developing a plan. I've been writing a lot. I've been doing co-writes. We do virtual songwriting sessions, and then also production work. Our studio will open back up soon, that I actually work out of, Elephant Collective Productions, and also was doing some artist empowerment, kind of like artist development work. So I had a artist empowerment program that I was running, kind of getting into the intricacies of transforming your artistry or creative passions into more of a profession, or approaching it in that kind of way.
So cool. So will you tell me, what are the qualities of an empowered artist?
Well, the qualities of an empowered artist are belief, and then also, well, it kind of goes into really just being able to recognize yourself for the uniqueness that you bring. So really finding what that is, and then accentuating the positives, and then finding collaboration to help lift up, some of your, it's not necessarily weaknesses, but just some of your lesser strengths, right? So then knowing where collaboration comes in, and then being
like if you don't play the drums, you collaborate with a drummer.
Yeah, and if you're recording and you can keep a good beat, but that somebody else could make it better, something like that.
Right.
Well, it's highlighting everybody's and accentuating everybody's strengths. So it's kind of like also like giving people freedom or permission, giving people permission to cultivate their true artistry, to bring it out, put it out there in the world, and to find the joy and the meaningfulness in collaboration.
Right.
Which is really a good thing to do in a time that's turned individualistic in a lot of ways. So yeah, I'm probably going to get back into that this fall, work with a partner.
I'm so curious about that. So are these workshops? Are they group programs? Is it individual work?
So it's kind of a group. We gather a group field and kind of do it virtually for 3 or 4 months, I would say. And private coaching, also have guests that come in, and also mentorship. Then being able to trade tracks and get feedback from a production standpoint. Right. And also songwriting collaboration virtually, assuming that we're in different locations. If somebody's where I am, then we'll meet in person. So we're doing songwriting collaborations, production collaborations, working on virtual record shares, and then also going on these bi-monthly group calls where we're creating a group field and talking about certain subjects of artistry and the music biz. And then also, then the private one-on-one sessions, and then we'll meet for a group retreat towards the end of it, a recording retreat, writing retreat,
Mm-hmm.
production, writing, and performance, if it lines up that way. And right now, looking to do more in Nevada City, actually, California.
Right.
So
That was one of the places we were looking at moving.
I love it there. Yeah.
I love it there mostly.
Well, I have never lived there. I've only visited. So.
Mm-hmm. My wife lived there when I first met her.
Okay.
We always have a really, really sweet time. I just, for some reason, can't see myself living there.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna but the Yuba is unsurpassed.
It's one of the most beautiful rivers in this country, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you show me a different one. I mean, the Columbia has some nice spots.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's hard. I feel guilty a little bit trying to compare natural splendor.
I know.
It's like natural splendor is all very splendid.
It is, man. River canyons are the best.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you. That's kind of where I go. It's like my safe place. I love it.
Speaking of which, I feel like I almost died in a river canyon.
Were you rafting?
No, it was a gorge. It's the Kali Gandaki Gorge. It's one of the deepest gorges in the world. From where in some places, and it's got one of the deepest drops from the highest to the lowest in the shortest amount of space. And it's in Nepal and through China and Nepal. And we wandered up there. It was in the Annapurna circuit. And we were just I just wanted to kind of go, there's this town called Muktanath. And it's sort of, I had heard that the Hindus and the Buddhists live very close together and they get along really well. And I was sort of had this romantic idea of some sort of these syncretic yogis that were doing strange practices. And they probably were, but I didn't meet them. But the town we went to, it was right on this gorge. And then on the other side, there were this monastery complex. And we're asking everybody, how do we get over there? We want to go there. That looks awesome. And he was like, oh, okay, good. It's well, you walk down this road for about 6 hours and then you cross the bridge and then you would walk back 6 hours and you'll be at the monastery. And that made sense to him. And me and my buddy looked at each other and we're we're just going to go straight down the gorge and then climb back up. And the guy was like, don't do that.
Oh my God.
He was like, that's dangerous. And we're we're doing it anyway. And we climbed down, and not only is it steep and dangerous and weird, we didn't take into account that we were at the highest, I forget the number, we were at the highest elevation we'd ever been at in our lives, right? For 6 hours. And then we're messing with it. So we're going up
Must have
and
been
down.
18,000 feet or something.
Thereabouts. We were surrounded by I think
froze.
5 of the 20 tallest mountains in the world. Oh, did I lose you? Did you cut out? I think my story is so boring that you cut out. We lost him. We lost Dango, everybody. Anyway, I almost lost consciousness at one point. If we don't get you back in a moment, we'll give you another moment. I will see if there are questions from the audience. We come to the North Bay. We support our musicians. Firefly in Kali says that you were dancing across the water at Terrapin Crossroads. So I saw you there. That's amazing. Well, all right, everybody. We have lost Dango, and that is a shame. Parting is such sweet sorrow. I appreciate you all coming to be a part of the show, and I will catch you all next week. And consider donating at the Patreon, the Tam Integration Patreon. Consider donating at the Dead Headland Patreon. And I will see you guys next week when we have Sunshine Becker Garcia. That will be an amazing, wonderful, lovely treat. All right. So many blessings. Many blessings.